Hello and welcome to another episode of the NK Active podcast. I am joined by Dave, our rehabilitation specialist here at NK Active. So this episode's topic is going to be all about getting holiday ready. So what do we mean by that? Well, if you think about it, if you're going to do a marathon, you'll tend to train for it. If you are going on a skiing holiday, you'll tend to try and do some ski-based exercises in the gym for a couple of months beforehand, ideally. But actually, do you train if you're going on a long walking holiday around New York City? Or do you train if you're going to start spending a week walking around Disney World in America? Because if we think about it, we know that people will have an average step rate anything between 14 to 18,000 steps a day, and some people report 20,000 steps or more in a day, every day for 4-5 days. How many people are actually doing that? How often are you doing that level of steps on a regular basis? And when I was just doing some research for this podcast, and I just literally typed the words Disney and foot. And one of the most common things we see coming up is a lot of people are asking the question is, how do I stop my feet from hurting whilst in Disney? And I think there are some good tips and tricks that we can let you know throughout this podcast to try and help. So Dave, talk us through about, why is it important for us to get a holiday ready?
It was an interesting topic. I think the biggest thing is awareness, because when you spoke to me about getting holiday ready, my initial thought was, that's a strange topic. But then when you think about it, even just for a couple of minutes, people will go on a walking holiday. People will do more steps. They will carry things more. They will get up in the middle of the night to catch a flight. They will start tired. And we know that one of the biggest injury risks is to do new or unaccustomed activity. And we're talking here really about a lot of the things that people do regularly. They walk, they carry things, but this is a big increase. And how many times do you hear people say, oh, it was a great time, really enjoyed it, but I need a holiday to get over my holiday? How many people go and rest or try and fit as much as they possibly can into the time they've got while they're there? Someone who went to New York recently came back and walked in 4 or 5 days, something like 60 miles as a tourist. Yeah. And it's this increase in carrying. When was the last time someone carried a heavy suitcase, lifted it into the car, took it out? It's that increase in load that we can help with preparation. And I think the awareness, what am I going to be doing differently, is one of the most important things that we can consider.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point, because we take New York. I think if you literally just walk around the path, literally around the outside of Central Park, I think that's around 10 kilometers. And I remember when I went to New York, is that we only got the train on the underground once, I think, just to experience it. Yeah. But we walked everywhere else because we wanted to do that sightseeing. And it's very similar. I went for a run early in the week, and unfortunately, I live sort of a couple of kilometers from the coastline, and I just went on a different run, a run I hadn't been on before. It's a little more scenic, a new area. Got home, and I'd realised I'd run 10 kilometers, which was an increase from how much I run. So I know on a hockey pitch, I will cover 10K in a game, but that's over a longer period of time, very short, sharp bursts. But this was 10K of non-stop running. Yeah. And it was one that I was thinking about. I didn't realise I was doing it because I was too busy taking in everything around me. So you can see when you're walking around some of the major cities in the world, or you're on these sort of Disney holidays, as it were, how easy it is to become distracted and not actually realise the amount of activity that you are actually doing.
This is breaking down exercise. It's not the gym. You're not on a treadmill. It's not exercise. It's a normal thing. Well, I'm just going to go and walk around and have a look. But step counts can go up, and it's that increase in the distance. And families, are the families carrying drinks, food for the children? Are they standing in the queues?
Yeah.
How are things changing? So it's that awareness that you can enjoy yourself, or these niggles, I've got to put up with it because I've got to enjoy this, I've got to do that, got to see this, enjoy my holiday. And if we can identify those things early and put in some simple things to reduce the risk of them happening, happy days.
And you talk about carrying things, especially with children, is that we have, sounds really sad, but we have our pram we have around at home, and then we then have one that has been abroad with us. It was a much cheaper one, so you don't mind if it gets lost or broken. Well, you do mind, but it's not as much of a, oh my God, type scenario.
Because prams can be expensive.
Yeah, exactly. But you then look at the cheaper pram we've got, has got less sort of carrying capacity with regards to everything a parent needs to have a child with them or a toddler with them or a baby with them. So then that means I end up carrying more, which, okay, if I go out to the zoo for the day with the family, a lot of it will be in the pram. But then if you then go on a holiday abroad, you may find, well, what's normally in the pram, you're carrying. So you may actually be carrying an extra 3-4 kilograms. So you've increased your step rate significantly, but then you've also increased the load because actually what you're carrying, you've got that extra weight, which is fine. But how many of us actually will sit there and when we're talking about training for events and training for this and planning this is going to happen, how many of us, when we then go out for our training walks, will put a backpack on with a similar weight so our body's accustomed to doing it?
Yeah. I think if we're looking at holidays, we could even extend this to business trips because people get back from business trips. There's a lot of similarities there. So what type of holiday is this going to be? Family holiday with children, couples holiday, sightseeing holiday, beach holiday. And if you break that down then into like loading the suitcases and carrying them. Oh, I haven't got to carry them far. Oh, we got stuck in a traffic jam. We've now got to get a bit quicker with the steps in the airport. That's a stress if you haven't carried something and run like that. When you get there, I can relax, I'm on the beach now. Beds, food, sleep, they're all stressors on the body, but I can relax on the beach. Maybe have a drink, change the way you do things. Swimming, getting in the pool, unaccustomed activities. So considering what you're going to do before you go, and then where are the pinch points potentially? Is it swimming? I haven't swum since last year. I haven't swum since 2 or 3 years ago at the moment. So exercises for that, having a stretch, practicing some of those.
Yeah. And sleep, we know there is lots of evidence out there around reduction in sleep and irregular sleep patterns and increased injury risk. But then we think we get on a plane, we go to a different time zone, you have that jet lag. So your sleep is already going to be massively affected. And of course, you've gone and paid a lot of well-earned money to go on these holidays. You're not going to worry, you just want to cram everything in and just try and, okay, I'll deal with this now and I'll worry about it when I
And that does seem to be, you can get a little strained. It doesn't, but then when does that go? If it's just a little strained, it doesn't affect you too much while you're there. You know, we might not be talking about a big debilitating injury, just a little bit of a niggle that starts with these increased activities, the lack of sleep, the carrying more, the walking more. And then when you come home, it just niggles away a little bit, but it started there. So there's different levels of injury as well. And just where do these things start?
Yeah, exactly. And even we speak about Disney, there is something called the Disney Rash. It's like so, and I mean, essentially, what that is just exercise-induced vasculitis, which in English basically means a bit of inflammation around the local blood vessels. So you get more blood to the area and you get this rash and it becomes itchy. And we know that's related to increased activity in warmer climates. But there are things that you can do to try and reduce the risk of that by making sure your footwear fits, making sure you're wearing loose-fitting clothes, making sure that you're staying well hydrated. And the thing about Disney Rash is that it will be itchy, it will be sore, it will be irritating, but it's completely harmless. And actually, it will usually settle when you get home within a couple of days and you're absolutely fine. But it happens to so many people in Disney that it's actually got its own name now. So,
That's incredible.
The other people, it's golfers rash. Golfers can get it as well. Hot climate abroad.
It's another one, golfing holiday. You're playing more golf in a concentrated time. You have a game of golf each week. You go away, you play a round every day, you play more, and it's that increase in activity that increases your risk. And you might get away with it, you might get a little strain, or you might just go over the top a little bit.
And I think we're possibly going to see more of this because now, touch wood, we're starting to get back to where we can start traveling more freely. People haven't been away, so they haven't been used to doing as much activities. Or they may try and say, I haven't had a really nice holiday for 2-3 years now because of the pandemic. And actually, well, I will go away in Easter, but then I'll go away in summer. And I'll do one holiday with the family and I'll do one golfing holiday. And you say the golfing holiday, you may play 18 holes twice a week, but you may play 72 holes in 3 days. We're on your way in Portugal, a few beers with your friends and whatnot. And you just forget about all that kind of stuff. And we know on a good day on a golf course, you'll walk 4.5-5 miles. If you're on a really, really, really bad day, it may be 6, depending how good your game is. And it's all these kind of things that we don't think about. And I don't think we think about it because we don't think of it as activity, do we?
No.
We think of it as, okay, we're just walking. That's all we're doing. But from a load perspective, the body doesn't really know any difference.
And we've seen people who are going to go for a walking holiday in Cornwall. They put their boots on, they're going to walk the coastal path and they go out and practice. But people don't go practice walking around Disneyland or New York or whatever city they might go to. But the distances are probably very similar.
Yeah.
And the shoes are very different.
Yeah. Well, shoes, you bring up a valid point there because I think we can now start offering you some tips and advice on, okay, we've spoken about the issues and setting the scene, as it were, but you're mostly really interested in, well, actually, come on, Nick and Dave, get to the point. What can we do to help myself? And me being a podiatrist, I'm going to focus on the foot and ankle stuff, and Dave's going to talk about the exercises and everything surrounding the exercises, as it were. Shoes are most probably the biggest thing and the quickest win that you can have to try and make your holiday more comfortable. And I believe there was a study that showed around 68% of people wear shoes that are the wrong size. The amount of people you hear of, I've gone to Disney or I've gone to New York and I come back with a load of blisters. The majority of blisters that people get is related to the fact their shoes do not fit properly. It's as simple as that. And it's about 68% of the population wear shoes that are the wrong size. And shoes are like jeans or clothes in that every brand fits you slightly differently. There are standardized shoe sizes, but different brands will make theirs slightly different because we tend to sometimes keep shoe brands like bank accounts. Like once we found a brand that we like and we know that works, we just then go, when our shoes are out, we just go buy those brands, and they know that. So that's why they do it, in my opinion. But it's little things like making sure you got a thumb's width between your big toe and the end of the shoe, making sure that when you're standing up, your toes aren't bulging out of the side. And a really easy way to check this is stand up on a bit of paper, draw around your foot or get someone to draw around your foot, and then put your shoe back on top. If your foot tracing is bigger than your shoes do not fit. It's as simple as that. And that's one of the easiest ways to try and reduce the risk of blisters. If your shoes do fit, and there are certain people like myself, I have a bit of what they call a Haglund's deformity. I have a bit of a lump on the back of my heel that leaves it prone. It can rub from time to time. So you can use things like blister patches, and you've got Compeed, and Compeed is great in my opinion once you've got a blister. But because we like to try and be more proactive rather than reactive, there's a brand called Ergopads that you can put in your shoes that will help reduce the rubbing. And just a bit of a quick myth bust is that people think blisters are related to friction. That's a bit of a myth. It's not. Well, how a blister forms is you basically get increased shear forces between the layers in the skin. And then they're basically rubbing together, they get hot, that creates a bit of inflammation, and then you then start to get this fluid then building up, and then that develops into a blister. And this is why some people say, I feel like a blister is coming, but I can't see anything yet because it's bubbling up underneath those layers of skin, and it will then transpire. Things you can then also look at is socks, making sure that you've got socks that haven't got any seams in, making sure that you've got socks that are fitting well. And you can then look at these synthetic socks like runners use, for example, that then just hug the foot, so you're not going to get any in that increased motion occurring. So again, that can be helpful. And then finally, keeping the skin health good. Making sure the skin is nice and moisturized and healthy. And they're really the big things that you can do to try and reduce your risk of getting a blister. And when it comes to footwear, rule number one is comfort. Comfort is king. Making sure they fit and then making sure they're comfortable. And that's what we need to be looking for. And then maybe then thinking about the right shoe for the right activity. I have got nothing against the likes of ballet pumps. But if you're going to spend walking 18,000 steps a day, we've got to ask ourselves the question, are ballet pumps really the right shoe to be walking around Disneyland in? Most probably not. The most practical shoe is most probably going to be a lightweight walking shoe or a running trainer, especially in those warmer climates, because a running shoe will be nice and light, they'll be breathable, they'll help support the foot, and you'll just generally find life much more comfortable. So that's really from a footwear perspective. Dave, sort of how would then someone, ways of people then say, okay, I get your point, Nick and Dave. We need to actually prepare to get the most of our up and coming trip.
Yeah.
Okay, we now got the shoes sorted. We've gone and got the shoes. We've got the comfortable, they fit well. They're the right shoes for the right job. Now, how can we make our bodies in the right way?
We mentioned earlier that it's new or unaccustomed activity that is the big. So if you're going to have a sudden increase in load or stress on the body, we need to practice. And there's no rocket science here. It's a very simple thing. And some of them might sound a bit strange, but if you're going to go walking around New York with the family, with the extra weight, do you go for a walk with a 4 kilo pack on? Is it a rucksack? Is it a single shoulder bag? What stops you putting that on in the house and doing your housework and walking around in the house with that on? Sounds a bit strange. You might not want to pack the suitcase, but you can pack the suitcase, leave it in the bedroom, and every time you move around, you carry it from the bedroom to the kitchen and back again. You just build up your capacity and you do these things regularly. You might get caught out in a queue right at the beginning, waiting to do passport security. You might stand for an hour before you've even done anything on your holiday. Standing is an unaccustomed load.
Yeah.
When was the last time you stood up and watched the telly instead of sitting down? Sounds strange, but it's building the tolerance for what's coming. The win-win, you might cut down your injury risk, but if you have a higher tolerance, you can either do the same amount of walking, carrying, lifting and moving and not be as fatigued, therefore enjoying your holiday more, or you've got the extra energy to do more.
Yeah.
So therefore enjoying your holiday more. So that preparation phase, and possibly the more outrageous it is, the more personal to you and individual to your holiday, practicing carrying a suitcase. Well, I know how to carry it. Well, actually, you're training the shoulder muscles, the grip, core stability. In the gym, we might do a suitcase carry, a fireman's carry, a farmer's walk. They're exercises that people do in the gym, and you can just do them at home and replicate that.
And the beauty of what I like you just said about there is you've given some examples that actually isn't going to take any extra time out of anyone's day. If you sat there watching, I don't know what people watch these days. People still watch EastEnders on Coronation Street.
I think they're popular.
It's a case of, well, that's a half-hour episode. I think it's half-hour episode. I'm really out of touch with soaps. I'm really, really sorry. It is maybe half hour. Do you stand for that half hour? That could simulate standing in a queue, waiting to go on a ride, or standing in the queue. Like, if you've ever been to New York and you then want to go up the Empire State Building, the amount of standing around in the queue you've got to go in peak season just to go to the top
all
of that
about
tank.
increasing that tolerance for what's coming. Practicing standing, but I know how to stand. But your muscles, particularly if we've done a bit more sitting recently, with a bit more sedentary at home, then either the risk or the enjoyment, and if I'm going to enjoy myself more because I can do more and not be as tired, sounds like a win-win to me.
Yeah, and I think there are other things, like if you know as a family you're going to go out and do long periods of walking for long periods of time, well, actually, why don't you then practice that as a family? Maybe going to the likes of the zoo or something for a family day out could be a nice way to start training and building everyone's tolerances, the little ones and the adults as well. The kids will tend to get away with it more because we all know that children have this innate ability just to do huge amounts of activity and don't really see the repercussions of it, and they just don't drop. They're like Duracell bunnies, aren't they? Especially I was speaking to one of the parents when I picked my children up from nursery and preschool yesterday, and it was a case of they come out and they literally spent 10 minutes running around outside. And we sat there thinking, isn't this what we pay preschool and nursery to do? And they just come out and they're just like, and then they get home and they're like, Daddy, I want some watermelon. Daddy, I want some yogurt. They go on the trampoline. They then run around and play and start outside. And I'm just like, I'm getting tired just watching. It is great fun. So then talk about, well, that's the walking, but then are there any sort of exercises that people could do to try and increase their strength, as it were?
If we've got steps up and down the stairs, and just that carrying that load, squats up and down every time you make a cup of tea, coffee, every time you do something, do 10 squats, stand on one leg, do some heel raises. And the more personal you make it to you, every time you make a phone call, if you're at work, how it works for you is really individual. At the end of a television program in the evening, stand up, do 10 squats, 10 heel raises. And it does sound strange, but these are the things that are going to come back tenfold when you're on your holiday. A little bit of time in preparation really is worth its weight in gold when you're in that queue, when you're going up those steps, when you've got to walk to the different terminal in the airport, when you get dropped off, hotel, walking backwards and forwards, whatever it might be, that's when it comes back and you're less fatigued. So there's nothing rocket science. It's the strange things that you put in before you do. So squats, you might be able to do 10, but can you do 10 and each one takes you 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Really slowly. Oh, that's difficult. So to make it easier, we'll do 5 squats, but each one's got to take you 20 seconds. Now we're into...
Yeah. Or you could say, can you do 10 squats? But then if you've got a toddler, can you do 10 squats holding the child?
Yeah.
I remember both my children loved Joe Wicks. Well, both my youngest at the time was 7 months old, so whether she enjoyed it, I don't know. She couldn't really tell me. She smiled.
It's activity and doing things together.
But my eldest was absolutely loved it when he then dressed up in costumes. But then I used it as some of my exercise, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not at work. I haven't got the gym. Well, actually, let's just now do some of the exercises in holding the children. So that's the way I made it harder. But actually, if you know you're going to be going away, where there's going to be queuing, and there's going to be times where the children just want to be picked up and they don't want to go in the pram, and you just like, I just need to get them from A to B, so I'll pick them up. Practice this. So then your body is ready for if you need.
And we all buy new clothes, we all buy new shoes, different things to go on holiday. Practice doing it in those, because for training and for exercise, you never change anything on the day of the race. You practice your training in the shoes with the same equipment. So new bag, new shoes, make sure they're all worn in. Make sure you know where the rub points are for the new bag or the old bag. Do you need a new one? How does it sit? When you've got the bag on and you pick the children up, you do a few squats in your kitchen. Yeah, I'm used to that. Yeah,
and you raise a point I forgot about there, so thank you for reminding me. With regards to the footwear, it's like if you're going to do a run, a big race, you wouldn't change your footwear 6 weeks beforehand. It's the same for if you want to go to like New York, Disney, Barcelona, wherever you're going. Don't make those sudden changes quickly. The last thing you want to do is to change the first big test you give is when you're on holiday and you find out the shoes aren't quite right for you, because it's just going to make you grumpy. because if you get a problem, it's just not ruining. Well, it may ruin your holiday, it may not, but it's not going to help to the enjoyment factor.
Yeah.
So, Dave, if we then sort of say your 3 tips, what would they be?
Think about the type of holiday you're going on.
Yep.
What are the potential issues? Is it a UK holiday? Travelling in the car? Where are you going and what are you going to do? Is it a foreign holiday? Aircraft? So once you've worked that out, where are the points? Actually, I'm going to be swimming. No, I'm going to be walking around the city. No, it's going to be the children. So try and identify for you and your circumstances where the increases are going to come.
Yep.
And then think about the simplest things you can do to replicate what's coming.
Yeah. So that's point number 1. Point number 2?
Point number 2, set time aside to do it. That doesn't mean extra time in your day.
Yep.
It means actually fitting it in. Load the suitcase and have it there. Get the bag with the drinks and the snacks in the kitchen. So prepare and put these things around. Get your clothes, shoes that you're going to be wearing on holiday laid out, put them on so that they're worn in. Even do the gardening in them or something so that you've had them on, you've moved around in them, you're used to wearing them. And if the suitcase is there, loaded, not necessarily with holiday things, other things, why wouldn't you carry it when you move around the house just to increase that shoulder tolerance?
And quickly then, number 3.
Enjoy your holiday. If you build up, you can do more or you can have less fatigue for the same amount. But whatever you do, this is about enjoying your time away, that well-earned break.
Yeah.
So a bit of planning ahead is always worthwhile.
And that's what I really took away from your 3 points. It was literally plan what you're going to do, test the scenarios out, making sure you're doing the things to train your body for the activity you're going to do. But then most and foremost, most not most, is then just go and enjoy the experience that you're about to go on. So then my 3 tips would be making sure your shoes fit and they're comfortable. Making sure that if you've got any niggles that are happening before you go and see someone to get them checked out before you go, just to sort of cross the T's and dot the I's, as it were. And then I think then also then final tip for me is if things don't go to plan when you're out there, don't panic, don't worry. If you get a blister, if you get a niggle, do not panic about it, do not stress about it. Just still enjoy yourself. And there are still things that you can do whilst you're away. There will be ability to use the likes of blister patches and whatnot to try and help get you through something, but try not to panic about those.
That comes into the planning. You know,
Yes.
Take a little pack, take a little blister pack, take a little first aid pack. In part of the planning, it doesn't have to be big, take up a lot of space or weight, but especially people who are used to going with kids, plasters and bits and pieces for grazes and stings. But think about what could happen, and a bit of prevention stops things coming.
And that leads nicely, and that's here at NK Active. We have just developed a new service about trying to encourage people to be more proactive with their health rather than reactive. So we've launched something called the Body Health Check that Dave's going to run for us, which is really about going through your activity levels, seeing what you can do, seeing what you can't do, seeing what your goals are, and then sort of helping you then guide you and setting a plan that then you maybe then look at carrying out yourself to then get you to the point where you can then be more proactive rather than reactive to problems. So I think that's a nice way to bring this actually to a close. I just want to thank Dave for coming on and giving us some of his time to have a chat.
That's good.
Really, really hope you enjoyed the episode. Please do subscribe to the podcast. Do pop any comments in the section below, and we'll send out also the link details around the body health check as well. And we shall see you on the next episode. See you later. Bye.